Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Team Galactic podcast, creating a better world not just for you, but also your Pokemon. We're your hosts.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Justin. And Andrew, why don't you tell us a little bit about today's topic and what we got planned for today?
Today's topic is why I wanted to do this podcast in the first place. We're talking about cards that were quote-unquote standard for the time they were out, and rotated to expanded, and are they still viable / playable? I have a very short list because I came in during a good portion of XY on. Justin has been playing a lot longer, so his list is like 4 times longer than mine.
Hey. It's fine. You actually came in Sun and Moon.
Yeah, Sun and Moon was it Burning Shadow, Crimson Invasion, but part
Crimson
of XY
Invasion.
was
Crimson
still
Invasion.
standard.
So, do you want to kick us off with the first card that you have on your list?
Yeah, we're gonna start with Tapu Lele GX, a card that was very expensive at the time. I'm still appreciative of you giving me one, and people that let me borrow them during tournaments because they were $40, $50. Thank you for those. So, Tapu Lele GX, it is a Psychic type. Its HP is 170. It's played for its ability and its attack. Not many people use its GX, so its ability is Wonder Tag. Plays Pokemon from your hand onto your bench during your turn. You may search your deck for a supporter card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. Great way to get set up, especially if you didn't draw any supporters, or you just need a fresh hand. You could grab things like at the time that were standard, like Guzma and Professor Sycamore, things like that.
It was reprinted, kind of reprinted a little bit into Minion V, is what it got reprinted into. Yeah.
It's interesting, it's similar, but it just doesn't feel the same.
Yeah.
I think it's because the attack's not there. Tapu Lele's attack is 2 colorless, so this could be any color energy. Energy Tribe 20 times. Attack does 20 damage times the amount of energy attached to both active Pokemon. This damage isn't affected by weakness or resistance. So if you're playing against an opponent that has a heavy loaded Pokemon, like Lugia GX for example, you're doing quite a bit of numbers there. And then its GX, I didn't really see anybody able to use it. It's a Psychic, just one. Heal all damage from 2 of your bench Pokemon.
The GX attack, for those who don't know, is only once per game. It was like the V-Star powers that we were talking about last episode.
It has no weakness, no resistance, and a retreat cost of 1. I believe there's 5 or 6 different versions of this card. It's the same text, it's just different colors,
Different
things
art,
like that.
a promo, I believe, full art, and rainbow rare. There's also a gold variant, if I'm correct about that.
Yep. The gold one is actually kind of nice on TCGO because it has a really nice effect.
What is it that you want to talk about on Tapu Lele? So, like, you want to see if it's still, like, viable for expanded to be used, or, like, what?
Yeah, so everyone played it during standard because it helped you set up, and obviously the attack's really nice, and most Pokemon during that time were 150 to like 210-ish for the GXs, which isn't bad.
Right.
So it felt kind of even, but like going to expanded, you have V-Star, V-Max, those heavy hitter tag teams. It's like, does this stat hold up? Are people still using that ability?
To answer your question, yes, to an extent. They're using the ability, but they are not using Tapu Lele itself.
Okay.
They're more so focusing on Luminion V, and it's not as common. Some decks that want to play level ball are more focusing on whatever would like be the next card that you could talk about, which is Jirachi EX, which is kind of like similar. So Lele can be good, can be bad. It just depends on what you want its purpose for.
Yeah. I would say the advantage Luminon V has is if you're playing it in a water deck, it's a water and 2 colorless. It does 120 damage. And you shuffle that Pokemon and all cards attached to it back into your deck.
Okay.
So in a way, you could kind of loop this.
Yeah, it's definitely loopable. There have been quite a few cards that have been like loopable before. So, what's the next card that you want to talk about?
Card that I loved, and people are like, "Why are you playing this at first?" Zoroark GX.
Bro, I remember Zoroark GX when it came out. Some of us were talking about, we don't know how this is gonna fare in the meta for standard. Like, it was very up in the air. Like, we didn't think it was good at times. We thought it was good. It just depends. And then when it actually got used, we were like, okay, this is probably one of the most broken cards that we have ever seen in the game up to that point.
Because this, you compare it with Tapu Lele GX, and you have a pretty good deck.
Right. So what does Zoroark say in the card, and what does it do?
So Zoroark GX is a stage 1. You have to evolve it from Zorua. It has 210 HP. It is a dark type. Has the ability Trade. Once during your turn, before you attack, you may discard a card from your hand. If you do, draw 2 cards. Big game changer there.
Oh, of course. Like it really helped boost the consistency of many different decks. And then after you talk about Zoroark, we can talk about one of the cards that I want to talk about that ended up getting paired with Zoroark.
Yeah. So another cool thing about Trade is if there's a card that if it's in your discard, it activates some sort of ability. This is what you would play with it, because you'd be like, hey, free ability, I draw 2, and whatever's in my discard now goes on my bench, goes in my hand, it attaches to a Pokemon, whatever it says. So it's definitely a huge bonus there.
Yeah, what I mean by that is there's a card in Expanded now. It's called Propagate. Execute. 30 HP, it has the Propagate ability. If this Pokemon's in your discard, you may place it back into your hand. So what you would do is, you would discard the Propagate with any means before you have the Zoroark to search out your Zoroark, and then you would Propagate again because the discard is a separate zone, so it would actually reset its ability. So you just set it into their hand, use Trade, set it into your hand, use Trade again, just because you could stack multiple trades. So you're drawing a good handful of cards for not really discarding anything.
Propagate had a number of other uses. We can talk about that with one of your cards that we have later. Alright, let's move on to its first attack. It's 2 colorless. Like I said, you compare this with Lele because it's also 2 colors. Brightest Beating 20 times. This attack does 20 damage for each of your Pokemon in play.
So that's doing like a massive chunk of damage just right off the bat. So you got
120.
Six Pokemon in play, you're doing 120. And then this is also the era of Choice Band. So you're doing 150. And you could even do more damage modifier because we had Kukui in the format at this point. So
yeah, it was plus 20, draw 2 or 3 cards.
Yeah, plus 20 damage, and it was a lot. So you could theoretically get 1 to 2 shot with this card. This is back in the era when we had lower HP numbers. We had some bigger ones, but like it wasn't as colossal as what it's going to get later in the format.
Yeah, like 210, 220 was like the big numbers, and then
there were like 240,
250
plus. 240, 250, and then afterwards it was hitting 300. Like we're talking about like Eternatus, for an example. That thing massive.
Thing,
how much HP does Eternatus have? Do you know?
340.
Yeah,
there's cards you can attach to make it even more, which is really gross.
Yeah, like
really
Big Charm, you can
numbers.
make it. Big Charm, you can make it 380, 370, 380. Oh my lord, you've got massive numbers here, and you also and this is similar to Zoroark because this came out in Standard at a later time. So this was Zoroark reincarnated in terms of VMAX. So like the ability Eternal Zone, if all of your Pokemon in play are Dark type, you can have up to 8 Pokemon on your bench, and you can't put non-Dark Pokemon in play. If this ability stops working, discard Pokemon from your bench until you have 5. That's huge! That's a Skyfield!
It is. Skyfield with Zoroark was amazing, and then they printed this, and it's like, I don't need Skyfield anymore, I just need this thing.
Actually, you wouldn't actually play Eternatus with Zoroark, just because Dark type limitations. With Zoroark, you don't want Dark limitations, because Expanded you have cards like Garbotoxin, which is the Garbodor, that says whenever you attach a tool card to it, all abilities are shard off except Garbotox. You don't really want to play that, as well as there's already Skyfield, which is the stadium. You can play 4 of them. Just split it down, Zoroark doing Propagate with Trade and everything else. So you're not wanting to shut off those abilities especially. And then you have Eternatus VMAX's attack, Dread End, 30 times for a Dark and a Colorless. This attack does 30 times for each Dark Pokemon you have in play.
Which is why you need an all-Dark type deck.
That's literally just a better Zoroark. If it didn't say Dark Pokemon and it said all your Pokemon in play, and Eternal Zone was non-Dark Pokemon as well, it would be great. It would still be one of the best attackers in the format.
Oh yeah, it definitely would. back to Zoroark GX. Its GX attack is 2 Dark type, and I love this GX because it's a way you can use it to end the game quickly, depending on what you use, because you can also use someone else's GX attack as this attack. You choose one of your opponent's Pokemon's attacks and use it as this attack. You can't use more than one GX a game. So I've used this playing against someone that had Dialga GX.
Yep.
And it allowed me to take another turn. I've also done Kartana GX to take my last prize card.
You did that with Cephalon GX too, which is literally you just put a prize card into the into the lost zone if it's fire energy. That Zoroark GX attack actually is a reincarnated foul play from Zoroark Break, a special kind of Pokemon card that we can talk about now since we're kind of done talking about Zoroark GX. So Zoroark Break is 140 and it has the Break evolution rule. Zoroark Break retains the attacks, abilities, weakness, resistance, retreat cost of its previous evolution, and it evolved from Zoroark, a regular Zoroark. So what it does is, it's kind of like the level X's, where you put it on top of Pokemon, and you can use their previous attack again, but you don't go up in prize cards or anything like that. So, and this only had one attack for a Dark Energy called Foul Play. Choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks and use it as this attack. Now, there are a couple caveats to it. You can only use the attack up until, like, the max requirements for the attack. So let's say you're trying to use Turtonator GX's attack that says discard 2 fire energy, right? So you would do Foul Play, do the attack for like 130 or whatever, and then you just can't discard any fire energy. You could still use the attack, you just couldn't discard any fire energy because you can only do up to the max amount of thing that you could do with the attack. So yeah, that's Zoroark Break. That was a very powerful card in the standard format. When it was standard legal, then it went into expanded. It's kind of not good in expanded anymore, just because there's so many powerful cards. Zoroark GX is very powerful in expanded still. That ability is 1 in a million. Essentially,
it is,
and with the damage that it can do, it's really, really powerful.
There are quote-unquote reprints of the ability. We got Curlia and Gardevoir. We talked about in Silver Tempest, but the attacks are really and it's low HP, makes it an easy target.
The attack that kind of makes Zoroark better than its other counterparts that do the same thing. And since we're on the topic of Skyfield, we can talk about a Pokemon card that is near and dear to my heart that I've played like hell throughout my time through the Pokemon TCG, whenever it's standard, legal, and expanded. Mega Rayquaza E. This card is fantastic. I played the deck in expanded, played the deck in standard, it's great. So, what it is, it's a Mega Pokemon. So, it evolves from Rayquaza EX. But the Mega Evolution rule is, whenever one of your Pokemon becomes a Mega Evolution Pokemon, your turn ends. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could that be good, right? Like, you end your turn, you evolve, and then you get a free attack, right? Like, they get a free attack on you?
Oh, I know how.
Right. So, what I'm about to explain is the concept of Spirit Links. And what Spirit Links are, they are tool cards that allow you to attach to a Pokemon that would Mega Evolve, and whenever it does Mega Evolve, it doesn't end its turn. You're thinking, okay, so you're evolving the next turn that you play it down, right? That's kind of okay, you still get a free attack. Maybe. You don't end your turn when you do it, so you're not wasting that turn, right? But, with Mega Rayquaza, it has an ancient trait called Evolution. You may play this card from your hand to evolve a Pokemon during your first turn, or the turn that this Pokemon came into play. So, turn 1, you are swinging with Mega Rayquaza, hands down.
That's really good. That helps boost your bench a whole lot.
And this was combined with Skyfield, because Skyfield came out in the same set. So, it's 220 HP, it's a normal type, or colorless. And it has, for a triple colorless, Emerald Break 30 times. This attack does 30 times the number of your bench Pokemon. And you're doing up to 8. So you're doing 240.
Sounds like Eternatus.
You're doing 240. Easy.
pretty big numbers. 240, considering that Mega Rayquaza has 220.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure that's a knockout on a good number of cards.
So back when this was standard legal, this was a knockout on literally almost any card in the format.
That sounds nice.
Except Wailord EX. Everything else it was
I remember Wailord EX.
It's because Wailord EX has 250, so you are 10 short from one-shotting. But there was Muscle Band in this format, but you're using the tool attachment, so you don't mind. Wailord can't heal as much as Rayquaza does. And Sting is only a 1 retreat cost, by the way.
That seems really low.
Mega Rayquaza is known to be one of the most broken Pokemon ever created in the game. Just because it has the ability to Mega Evolve in the games without holding Omega Stone. This got banned in many formats.
I could see why.
In Smogon, they banned it to anything goes. It's in its own tier because of how strong it is.
Yeah. There's also Double Dragon, right?
Yeah, so there's a Mega Rayquaza that is a Dragon type that's not as played. It's okay, but it's not the Mega Rayquaza that's this one. It really isn't.
Okay, because I'm looking at pictures, I'm like, what about this one? Yeah, it's the colorless one that everyone played.
So, whenever Rayquaza came out, this was just at the turn of a new standard ruling. You cannot attack on your first turn, going first.
I'm kind of glad that rule happened, because easy knockouts turn 1, easy wins.
It made Donk really powerful.
I can see why.
They changed the rule for a couple specific cards. One of them is Shiftry. That was only countered by one card, Baltoy. It had the ancient trait to stop all ability.
Oh.
So, what this Shiftry did, its ability is Giant Fan. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may flip a coin. If heads, choose one of your opponent's Pokemon. Your opponent shuffles that Pokemon and all cards attached to it into his or her deck.
Ew.
Yes. Now, that was the reason it got banned in Expanded. Whenever it was expanded. So.
Yeah, because, like, if you only have your active...
It didn't matter. So, what you did was, you played Seedot and Nuzleaf, which were grass types, and you used the stadium Forest of Giant Plants. Because Nuzleaf is the grass type, it can evolve first turn. So you are first turn donking with a stage 2. That's the power of Forest of Giant Plants. That's what caused Shiftry to get banned. Because of how powerful this card was.
I wonder what they were thinking when they made this card, because reading that ability, it's like...
Forest
I feel
wasn't
to make it balanced, it should be like, if your opponent only has one in play, you cannot use this ability.
So the reason why this was okay is because Forest wasn't a thing. And neither was Wally.
So once Wally Forest came out, it was like, hey, get rid of this.
No, once Forest came out, it was get rid of it. Wally broke a couple cards that we can talk about next, which is Trevenant.
Oh, I remember Trevenant.
Trevenant was a very, very powerful card. It has Forest Curse. As long as this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, your opponent can't play any item cards from his or her hand. Wally allows you to search your deck for a card that evolves from one of your Pokemon, that excluding Pokemon EX, and put that onto that Pokemon. This counts as evolving. Shuffle your deck afterwards. You can use this card during your first turn, or on a Pokemon that was put into play that turn. So what you do is you turn 1 item lock.
Ew.
They can't play the game.
Yeah, no. I will admit I've run into this card a few times on TCGO, and like I immediately scoop because some of the decks I play have to have those abilities. I'm like, nope, I'm out, I can't play.
There was a couple cards of counterplay to this. There was Hex Maniac was the counterplay.
Oh.
Till the end of your opponent's turn, like your opponent's next turn, you have no abilities at all. All abilities are shut off. So what you do is you play Hex, get your items, you do all that, you make sure you set up, you burst the Seeker to grab Hex back into your hand, and you shut them off, and you make sure that they can stay shut off, so that you can use your abilities, your items, and actually do everything.
That's a good combo there.
But Hex was banned for that specific reason.
Ooh.
Hex was banned for the reason it was created. Shutting off abilities.
Pretty sure it won't get unbanned either.
Oh, no. Hex is too powerful of a card because it shuts off abilities. And the reason why it got banned is because when it expanded, it was growing rampant. Easily, because I would turn 1 gets somebody. My first turn, going first. Turn 1 gets this. Screw them out of the entire game. And then Hex lock somebody. They can't play abilities. They're already screwed out of the game. Go to next game. Or if it's the best of 1, you're done. Like, you just scoop and go on. It is one of the quintessential cards to breaking the format. There was Hex, Gexus, and Puzzle of Time. We can talk about Puzzle.
Oh, I love Puzzle of Time. I played it for a little bit.
Puzzle of Time, it's a card that you have to play 2 of if you want the full effect of it. So if you only play 1, you may look at the top 3 cards of your deck and rearrange them in any order. Pretty cool, right? But it's that second one that's broken about it. Well, not broken, it's game breaking about it. You play 2 at a time, and you may search or discard for up to 2 cards and put them back to your hand.
Yeah, that was a good card to play 2 of.
The reason Puzzle was problematic and it got banned was a specific card. Resource Management Orangaroo.
Yeah.
This card...
You could loop it infinitely.
This was an infinite loop that killed the deck out rule in Pokemon. Which is like, for example, why they banned Lysander's trump card. Because it removed the deck out, it also removed the timeout. It also allowed you to go to timeout. So it just stalled the game. Rangaroo, Resource Management. We call it Resource Management because of the first attack is Resource Management for colorless. Put 3 cards from your discard at the bottom of your deck, in any order. So you would grab double Puzzle in any card, and you would be set up and ready to go. This was banned and expanded for that specific reason.
You could do some crazy loops with Puzzle of Time and Resource Management.
This was combined with Zoroark and Seismitoad to make Zorotoad, which was a really, really anti-meta call for an expanded event, and after that it got banned.
I can see why.
The reason why, because it was so consistent, you were literally decking yourself out to have literally either like 4 or 3 cards or something like that, and then you just loop that over and over and over again, and you just win, essentially. You have everything at your disposal. It does not matter.
Yeah, it's a great combo.
For sure, for sure. So, another card that I kind of want to talk about is Shaman EX. This card was $60 to $70 upon release. It is a powerful card.
The most expensive one right now is $15.76. That's the alternate art promo. The rest are $5 and below for the setup one.
So it was $50.
That's a lovely card.
Yeah, it was $50 to $60 because of the ability and the attack. Shaman EX is a 110 EX Pokemon, and it's a pretty relatively low HP, weak to lightning. I think it's 1 retreat cost, if I'm correct. And what it did was, when you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, draw until you have 5 cards in hand.
6 cards.
6 cards? Okay.
Yeah, I feel you'd say 5 because most of the time you'd have 1 card in your hand. Like, I need to keep this. Give me 5 more.
Yeah. So you would literally draw through your deck blazingly quick. And this came out in the same set that Mega Ray and Skyfield did.
So you're drawing for days.
You are
Especially, did anyone do its attack?
Yes. Shaman looping.
Attach
DCE, one of the most energy breaking cards in the format.
Yeah,
and,
Sky Return, you do 30, little boop, and then you put the card and everything attached to it back into your hand. Pretty good, pretty good.
Very game breaking. So it actually got banned and expanded more recently. The reason it got banned was a card that came out in Sword and Shield.
Mm-hmm.
Scoop Up Net.
Yeah, Scoop Up Net is... Oh boy. Yeah, so Scoop Up Net is put one of your Pokemon that isn't a V or a GX into your hand. So Shaman EX is an EX, it's not a GX or a V. So instead of doing the 30, returning it to your hand, you would pick this up, play Scoop Up Net, put it back in your hand, and you're good to go. Now there is somewhat of a reprint later. We have Crobat V. When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you may draw until you have 6. You can only use one per turn. It's not as... it's pretty good in Standard. The problem is it doesn't have a way to get it back into your hand as Expanded does. It has an attack, but it's for doing damage and poisoning, it's not for putting back into your hand. So the reason why Shaman EX got banned, you would play Shaman EX, draw your 6, 5, 4, however many.
Right.
Then you grab Scoop Up Net, place it down, put Shaman back into your hand, play a couple cards out of your hand so you have less. Hey, I can do Shaman EX again. Which is why Crobat says you can only do one per turn.
No, Shaman still said you could do one per turn.
When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you may draw cards so you have 6. That's it.
Yeah, it did.
I was on TCGO when everyone was doing Shaman Scoop. It was ridiculous. So they'd play those decks where, what is it, the Unknown, where if you have a certain amount in your discard or whatever, you win. So they would just do that with this card. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, and that alone got banned too.
Yeah, which I'm glad, because you're just sitting there for like 10 minutes watching them play their cards. You're like, can I go? Can I go? And then it just says victory, and you're like, what? And you see the Unknown, you're like, oh, thanks.
There's
scooped earlier.
There are certain cards that didn't even come over here. They were in Japan already. Certain Unknown cards that were already too consistent that they were seeing play, that they were banned in Japan. And once Japan banned them, we like to keep our formats the same on our ban list. We banned it.
It was pretty good seeing what they were playing. I like to look at Japanese lists occasionally because they play some lists, you go, what? And then you actually try it and you're like, oh, that's why.
Really, really good. What next that you want to talk about?
A card I played for a little bit because it was fun. It broke the game for a little bit until people figured out how to get around it. Zygarde GX.
Okay.
It is a fighting ground type. It's 200 HP, which is pretty high. Its first attack is Cell Connector to Colorless. It does 50 damage. Attach 2 fighting energy cards from your discard pile to this Pokemon. Maybe thinking, okay, whatever. But it needs 4 energy for its second attack and its GX. Second attack is 2 fighting, 2 colors, lands Wrath, 130. Nothing special, that's it. 130, there's things to modify it. The GX is what we play with. For 2 fighting and 2 colors, Verdict GX, you do 150. Prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your Pokemon GX and EX in your opponent's next turn. One-time use, right? Well, a card came out called Bonnie. You can only play this card if there's any Stadium in play. Discard that Stadium card. During this turn, your Zygarde GX can use its GX attack even if you already used it. It's a way to loop an attack and prevent your opponent from hitting you for a while.
And this was played with Scorched Earth, which is a Stadium card that says discard fighting or fire energy from your hand and draw 2 cards.
Indeed, it was a fun deck, but people figured out, hey, I know how to get around this. And it was like, oh, not really fun to play anymore.
A common theme that I'm seeing with a lot of these cards is they're very old. Not many players are going to know how to get around that. As like newer players are. Like if you have somebody who's not familiar with the certain formats and they're like, oh, I'm just coming in, what does this do? And you do this kind of stuff, you're just like, wow, I don't know what's happening or why this is working.
I miss playing this card.
You might be able to, honestly, you might be able to build it and expand it and play it again because people don't know what it does.
Yeah, I'm thinking about going to TCGO and looking at some of these GXs and playing them.
Mhm.
I still play Garbodor Buzzwole. That is still 100% working. I win games with it, even against V-Stars and V-Maxes. It's hilarious because I put Garbodor out and they're like, I can't play my game. And then they put the angry face.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about Buzzwole and what it
Oh,
does and why it's so good and why it was so played?
Buzzwole. Oh, man. So before we talk about Buzzwole, I played Buzzwole at Daytona, got top 128, my first regional. Exciting times. I love this card. Buzzwole GX. It's a fighting type. HP is 190. It's an Ultra Beast. That's very, very special for why it's an Ultra Beast, because there's cards you can play with it. Its first attack for 1 energy of fighting. Jet Punch, it does 30. Also does 30 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. You don't apply weakness or resistance to this. So there was strong energy, which you could play with this, so it does 50. You could also play Diancie Prism, which makes it 70. You could either play Wide Lens to do weakness resistance to their bench, so you could possibly do 60 on the bench, or you could play Choice Band for an extra 30. So you got Jet Punch for 30, Strong Energy for 20, Diancie for another 20, and then you have a Choice Band. You're doing 100 damage for 1 energy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's max modifiers. I think there might be 1 or 2 more if you wanted to throw Regirock EX.
Yep.
I think it does an extra 10, but
Yep.
when Diancie Prism came out, Regirock EX kind of went away.
Yeah, for sure. Because Regirock
So 100
wasn't really
damage.
needed.
And if you're hitting weakness, that's 200 for 1 energy.
Yeah, it's massive. Buzzwole was played so much because Zoroark was a thing.
Mm-hmm. It took out numerous Zoroark decks. Let's move on to its second attack. For 3 fighting, Knuckle Impact 160. This Pokemon can attack during your next turn. Seems kind of iffy. It's really good if you need that knockout and your opponent doesn't really have anything set up. Once I finish talking about the Absorption GX, I will go over my combo I like to do, because it's really fun. Absorption GX is 3 fighting, does 40 times. Attack does 40 damage for each of your remaining prize cards. So that's 40, 80, 160. I'm bad at math.
Aren't we all?
40 times 6, that's 240 damage. That's before any modifiers.
Mm-hmm.
So what I like to do with Buzzwole, I would have 1 in the active with an energy. I would have a Baby Buzzwole on the bench. The reason why I played Baby Buzzwole is its first attack is Sledgehammer, 30 plus. If your opponent has exactly 4 prize cards remaining, this does 90 more. So if they knock out Buzzwole GX, I put Baby Buzzwole in the active, I'm doing 120, 240 weakness. Now, my combo I really like to do is do Absorption GX as soon as I can with all 6 of my prize cards remaining. That way I get 2 prize cards, sometimes 3 on TCGO because of weakness on the VMAX and V-Stars. And then the next turn I'll do Knuckle Impact, and the reason why I'll do that is probably that turn after, they're knocking me out. So I don't need to worry about you can't attack on your next turn.
Right, and like there are the ways, like we still have Floatstone in the format at this point. So you could use Floatstone, retreat, reset the attack, and then just go again.
Indeed. So the reason why I said Ultra Beast is important, there's another card you could play with this called Beast Ring. You can play this card only if your opponent has exactly 3 or 4 prizes remaining. Search your deck for 2 basic energy and attach them to one of your Ultra Beast. So like I said earlier, they knock out Big Buzzwole, I put Baby Buzzwole in the active, Beast Ring's active, I can have another Buzzwole GX ready to go on the bench, and win the game. Very insane combo.
Definitely very powerful. And it was also played with Brooklet Hill, which is a stadium which allows you to grab a fighting or a water Pokemon and put them onto your bench. This was also played and paired with Lycanroc GX. Lycanroc GX was mainly used for its ability, Bloodthirsty Eyes, whenever you played it to evolve a Rockruff. from your hand onto to a wall bit. It literally a boss's order or a Lysander, and what those are is you grab a Pokemon and you drag it into the active, which is very good for taking knockouts, taking prizes that you really needed.
Mm-hmm. It helps so much.
Buzzwole, and the reason Buzzwole was doing why it was doing what it was doing was the reason we started playing 70 HP basics, because it would do 60.
Yeah.
And we needed that extra 10 HP because it mattered.
Indeed, there were things you could put to keep them alive, but Buzzwole was just getting knockouts left and right. You could do 30 to the bench. Cool. Next turn, I'm attacking your active, and that same 30 on the bench for the knockout. So people were like, 70 HP, it'll take you 3 turns to knock this out. And by then, I'm either healing it, getting it off my bench, or evolving it.
And Buzzwole was so strong that when it went to expanded, decks had to play as a tech card weakness policy. And what weakness policy does is it says the Pokemon this card's attached to has no weakness. So we're playing these in Zoroark decks at regionals. I'm playing it in Decidueye Zoroark after the fact, because I went to a regional with Decidueye Zoroark, and I didn't tech in weakness policy because I wasn't thinking about it. And after the fact, I was like, oh, so this just makes the Buzzwole matchup free, pretty much, just because Decidueye Zoroark was doing so much damage, but it was the weakness that was killing it. And then you also have Zoroark Break, making a return here. It was just an overall very, very powerful card. Very powerful deck.
It was. All the stuff, like, there's cards during this time period that's like, you might want to tech one in, just in case, you never know, someone may have that one card you need to play it against, and usually it was a lifesaver.
Right. So, let's talk about Volcanion EX.
Oh, I love Volcanion EX. I still have that full art you gave me. So pretty.
It is a very pretty card. So let's talk about what it does.
Yeah. Volcanion EX, it's a fire and water hybrid. It's a dual type, which I'm wondering if they're ever going to bring back.
Possibly.
So it's fire and water. HP is 180. It was used for its ability over everything else whenever I saw it. Steam Up. Once during your turn, before you attack, you may discard a fire energy from your hand. You do during this turn, your basic fire Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon before applying weakness and resistance. A lot of EX and GX fire types are basics, so you're doing extra damage with this. Now, what I don't remember, does it stack?
Yes.
Yeah, so you can have like 2 or 3 of these on your bench, doing an extra 90, 60 damage, depending on how many you played.
And Volcanion wasn't just played for its ability, it was also played for the attack. It was played for it by a deck itself.
I only saw it played for the ability. That was before I saw people use it for the attack. So its attack is 2 fire and a colorless volcanic heat for 130. This Pokemon can attack during your next turn. Decent amount of numbers, considering this has 180. I'm pretty sure other EXs had 180, 210,
yeah,
160.
190. 180, 190 was the kind of threshold that we were hitting. We weren't really hitting much up 200 at this point, except with Mega Pokemon. Certain Mega Pokemon went over that boundary, like Mega Rayquaza, Mega Mewtwo, other powerful Pokemon that came out around that era.
Yeah, this thing's doing 160 by itself.
And also, Volcanion came out with a card in its set, Pokemon Ranger. Remove all active effects on your Pokemon. So you would do Volcanion's attack for 130, 160, 1 steam up, 190 for 2 steam ups, and 220 for 3 steam ups. And you would use Ranger and be able to just attack straight again. This was also a way to remove Seismitoad's item lock. And that's why it's played. But Volcanion was a deck itself, and you're thinking, okay, so how do you power this thing up? Like, energy-wise, right? This also had a baby Volcanion in that same set. For 30, attach an energy from your discard to one of your bench Pokemon, a fire energy. So you would
Pretty
just
good.
discard and use Steam Up to discard an energy, attach it with the fire energy attack, and you're still doing extra damage because it's all fire Pokemon get an additional 30 damage. So Baby Volcanion's doing 60 instead of 30.
These combos were just crazy.
And this is back in the day when we had N in the format, we had Sycamore, we had Versus Seeker. We had all these cards that were just super, super good. We also had Max Elixir.
I remember that. That's still a card I like playing in Expanded.
And what Max Elixir is, it's a item card, so you can play as many as you want during your turn. Only allowed 4 of them in the deck, of course, just because that's the normal Pokemon rule. Look at those top 6 cards. Search those 6 cards for an energy and attach them to any basic Pokemon on your bench. Then shuffle. So you're powering up Volcanion fast, fast, fast.
Free energy attachment, and you're not really losing anything other than the Max Elixir you played.
Yeah, and you really don't want Max Elixir in your hand after you've already kind of searched your deck and powered everything up. So it's fine. Let's talk about Abyssal Hand.
Oh.
This is an auxiliary card that came out, I want to say, in Breakthrough.
Yep, Breakthrough.
So, why don't you tell us about Abyssal Hand, Andrew?
Abyssal Hand. Man, this card is something else. So it's a stage 1. Auxiliary evolves from Remoraid, which I don't understand how an octopus comes from a fish. But anyway, it's a water type. HP is 90. Abyssal Hand ability. Once during your turn, before you attack, you may draw cards until you have 5 into your hand. It's really great if you had 3 left and one of them was an Ultra Ball. You'd play Ultra Ball, discard the 2, put something on your bench or not even grab, and then be like, hey, Abyssal Hand for 5. Great way to get set up and draw more cards.
Definitely, definitely, really good card. So this was also played with Premonition Gallade, whenever that was standard legal. And what Premonition Gallade did, once during your turn, before you attack, you may look at the top 5 cards of your deck and put them back in any order. So you're using Premonition, then just getting that 1 or 2 cards on top of your deck, and using Abyssal Hand to draw those cards in that you really, really need.
Yeah, which is a nice combo.
For sure.
Auxiliary does have an attack. I wanted to use it to kind of win a game because it's kind of funny. It's 2 water and a colorless called Hug for 40. I literally wanted to stand up and say Hug for knockout in game. It also says defending Pokemon can't retreat during your opponent's next turn, which would have been even funnier. But I could never get it off. I tried so many times.
There's one specific card that I want to talk about. It's Decidueye GX. It is a Stage 2, 240 HP GX. It has an ability and 2 attacks, one of them being a GX attack. Its ability states in its Feather Arrow, once during your turn, before you attack, you may place 2 damage counters on a Pokemon. Now, the difference between damage and damage counters. Damage counters get around attacks or abilities that say prevent damage done to this Pokemon. So you would do 20 to anything. And then its first attack is Razor Leaf for 90 for a grass and a double colorless. Pretty good. What it was mainly used for was its ability as well as its GX attack. For 1 grass, I forget the name of it. Give me a second.
The GX is Hollow Hunt GX.
Hollow Hunt
Put 3
GX.
cards from your discard into your hand.
Thank you. So, you're grabbing 3 cards that you really need with Decidueye. It is one of the best cards that I have ever played, and this was around when Forest of Giant Plants was legal and standard. Also, I don't like Vileplume. So what you're doing is, you're turboing Decidueye to get extra ping damage and donking, or item locking and doing the same thing. So it was a very, very fast and aggressive Stage 2 deck that allowed it to be very, very strong. Ever since they banned Forest and expanded, it really doesn't do much in terms of damage and output. it just can't stick with the meta today. It's unfortunate because it's my favorite card that has ever been printed. I love this card to death. I have played this card for, like, to death. It is my favorite card. And then...
Would you ever pair Decidueye GX with Inteleon Quick Shooting?
I thought about it. I might.
Just like, spread.
Yeah, so, I might do with the Inteleon engine. There's also the Alolan, Exeggutor and Rowlet Tag Team GX, which allows you to, search your deck for basically an entire evolution line and put them into play. If you already have the basic out.
Yeah.
So you could do that. It's just something I have to test. I'm thinking, theoretically, just thinking about it, it's not going to be good.
Okay, just a thought, like more quote-unquote feather arrows going out.
Yeah, but it's just, when you already have so much going on, and the deck's losing so fast, just because of how big the numbers are, it's just not really something that you can afford to take. Excuse me. With how damage is going around. Another card that I did want to talk about, Greninja Break.
Ninja Break, I remember that one.
This card is wonderful. So this is a break card like we were talking about earlier, and it would evolve from Greninja. So it's technically a stage 3, quote unquote. So what it is it's it just has an ability. Giant Water Shuriken. Once during your turn before you attack, if this Pokemon is your active, you may discard a water energy from your hand. If you do, put 6 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. And this was very fundamental to be played with the Shadow Stitching Greninja that came out in the same set. It had no retreat cost. So you get double breakout, and you are doing 120 on one turn. Very, very powerful card. It's a little bit too slow for today's formats nowadays. Just doesn't do enough damage. That's a big thing with a lot of these cards. They just don't do enough damage.
I did see Inteleon with the 2 damage counters and the newer Greninja Evolution line where it's like, oh, you put it down, you can do damage to the bench, played with this, but it didn't last too long just because it wasn't doing enough against the 300 plus VMAXs.
Yeah, that there might be a resurgence whenever the numbers eventually come down, because they are coming down. There might be a resurgence.
Yeah, the EXs we saw, it was like, what, 190, 180?
No, we're looking still over 200. But it's getting better because they're evolution. They're evolution EXs. So it's getting a lot better. So that's sort of everything that I wanted to talk about in terms of Pokemon meta and how things are going. Moving everything over from standard to expanded. So, what other cards did you want to talk about today, Andrew?
I want to talk about one that is still a little pricey. It's like $2 to $4, which is surprising. It's Jirachi from Team Up with the ability Stellar Wish. Which is once during your turn, before you attack, this Pokemon's in your active. You may look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal a trainer card there, and put it back into your hand. Then shuffle the other cards back into your deck, and this Pokemon is now asleep. It was very interesting when it came out. There were ways to get set up quickly because of this. A lot of the times, people would grab, I think it was a skateboard.
Yep. The reason being,
with a skateboard.
The reason being is because you can a skateboard allows you to retreat even if you're asleep or paralyzed.
Yeah, very, very nice combo. Because if you didn't have a skateboard, you'd grab anything else that was there, and be able to get set up more. If it gets knocked out, okay, whatever. 70 HP, 1 prize for you. More than likely, they're ready to go whenever you knock it out.
And there are 3 common decks that they were played in. It was played in Pikarom, Zapdos, Baby Buzzwole.
Oh yeah.
Those are the 3 common decks that it was played in. Zapdos, it did a lot of damage really quickly. It was a basic one prizer deck that just did a lot of numbers.
Indeed, it was.
As for the question, do I think this card will still be played? Yes, in another form. Isn't there a Mew that does the same thing?
Mew, I'm not sure. I don't think so.
But there are more better setup mons. There's also now with Lost Zone decks.
You're right, there is a Mew. It's from Celebrations. And it's, look at the top 6 cards of your deck, reveal an item card there, and put it into your hand. It is not asleep.
Yep.
But you do have to shuffle.
That's fine. There's also Comfy with Lost Zone decks and stuff like that, which is look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one in the Lost Zone, one into your hand.
Yeah, pretty nice, pretty nice.
So, like, it's still, like, really good. So, what other card do you want to talk about?
Let's go over one card. I'm probably going to say the name of it, and people are going to be like, ill, gross. Arceus and Dialga and Palkia GX.
Ew!
Yeah, if you don't know, you're a free person. Just playing against this when it came out, I hated it, both standard and expanded. I'm gonna read the entire card because it was used for everything, and it was weak to Fairy, which nobody was really playing in standard. So, Arceus and Dialga and Palkia GX. It's a Dragon type, 280 HP. Its first attack for a water, a metal, and a colorless. Ultimate Ray for 150. Search your deck for up to 3 basic energy cards and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. Then shuffle your deck. It's a good way to get set up. But people would do the GX first. It's Metal Plus Altered Creation GX. For the rest of your game, your Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active. So if you did this first, you're doing 180. However, if this Pokemon had at least 1 extra water energy attached to it, in addition to the cost, so you'd have a water and a metal, and your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out by damage, you take 1 more prize card. So if you do the GX, and then do Ultimate Ray for 180 and knock out a basic, you're taking 2 prize cards for what's usually a 1 prizer.
That's a lot.
It is. I hated playing against this. I'm so glad it got rotated out. I don't really see it on TCGO that often, but I feel it still could be viable with what's out now with Reggie Draco and Duraludon VMAX.
So the thing is, you would actually play this by itself again, or with one other pairing. So what you do is you would use the Lost Zone engine, and use the Mirror Gate or whatever it is, and power this puppy up easily, if you don't have Double Dragon.
Yeah, because Double Dragon's definitely what made this run in expanded.
And if you don't know, Double Dragon energy is the same as Double Colorless, except it gives Dragon type Pokemon 2 energy of any type, but can only be like one at a time kind of thing. So yeah, like you can have like
you attach, it could be 2 water, it could be 2 metal. You could even declare, hey, for some reason I want this to be 2 fire.
Yeah. Or a water and a metal, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Very, very powerful card. Wish we had it back, but we don't.
Yeah, that got rotated out.
So, do you want to talk about the Alolan Dugtrio?
Yes, I do. Oh, man. I'm tempted to remake this deck on TCGO, because they're like, oh, Live is coming out, we're getting rid of TCGO, be prepared to merge, back up your decks. Which I did. TCG Live is out as a beta, and I don't want to merge. I know eventually they're going to be like, you have to, or you lose everything, but we'll get there eventually. So Alolan Dugtrio, Stage 1, evolves from a Alolan Diglett, is a Metal Pokemon, HP of 60. For no energy, Gold Rush 30 times. Discard any number of Metal Energy cards from your hand. This attack does 30 for each card you discarded in this way.
That's huge.
Uh-huh. I would play this with a number of cards. The one that comes to mind is Professor's Letter. Lets you look for energy. I had a Starmie that let me grab energy.
Space
I
Beacon.
had Mount Cornet. Once during each player's turn, that player put 2 energy cards from their discard pile into their hand.
Oh.
Yeah, it confused people because they're like, are you going to attach? And I'm like, nope. And they're like, why? And I'm like, 30, 60, 90. And they just look at my hand like, oh, that's why. They knocked me out. 1 prize. Cool. I have another one ready to go. I have ways to get the energy back into my hand. Did I win? Not very often. It was just a fun deck I like to play. It was an interesting meme deck I made.
So now let's talk about Rescue Stretcher. This card was really good when it came out. It has 2 modes. The first mode is you put a I think basic Pokemon from your discard into your hand, right?
Put a Pokemon, so it could be basic, it could be stage 1, 2, GX, V, whatever you want.
Or the second mode is shuffle 3 Pokemon from your discard into your deck. So this is really good.
They're both amazing.
It ended up getting overshadowed by the reprint, Ordinary Rod.
Mm-hmm.
And why don't you tell them what Ordinary Rod does?
Ordinary Rod. I pulled a secret rare 3 times. So I have 3 of them in my binder. So you can choose 1 or both. Shuffle up to 2 Pokemon from your discard into your deck, or shuffle up to 2 basic energy from your discard pile into your deck, or you could do 2 Pokemon, 2 energy. It's basically a Rescue Stretcher upgraded, in my opinion.
Okay. Interesting.
I like Ordinary Rod. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, definitely a really good card. Would I see that Rescue Stretchers still get played? Yes, in some cases, but there's other cards like Rescue Carrier, Ordinary Rod, for example, so there's not really much that we can talk about with that.
Yeah, I feel it's up to people if they want to play Stretcher or Ordinary Rod, or maybe even one of each.
Or Super Rod.
Yeah, Super Rod too.
Which is
Super Rod's nice.
If you want to go over what Super Rod does.
Yeah, Super Rod from XY Breakthrough. Shuffle 3 and any combination of Pokemon and basic energy from your discard pile back into your deck.
Really good, really good. It was super good when it came out. You know, it's still super good now. There's just a little bit better options, but it's still super good card. Don't let us confuse you.
Yeah, I played Super Rod a few times because it's like I need the Pokemon I was playing was a basic and it used 2 energy, so this was like perfect to play with that to put it back in my deck and get going again.
Andrew was asking me about the expanded format and also a little bit of different formats for the game. Just because I'm basically a grandfather for this game. I've been playing this game for so long. Most of the people that are in the game now didn't even play this game. I'm like a grandpa for this game. So
yeah, you've seen a lot.
I've been around the block a few times. So Expanded started in the 2014-2015 format. This is at the end of Black and White, in the beginning of XY. So that era alone, like you have like Mega Evolution coming into the format, so that's when they kind of started Expanded. And we for a while just had Standard and Unlimited. Unlimited was every card ever created. No ban list, no nothing, you just play it.
It's fun. Standard... I still have that deck somewhere.
I still have my Unlimited decks as well. Standard was just the latest set and they rotate out. Do I think it was a mistake that Expanded came out so late? Yes, I do. Do I wish they had a better Expanded format and did it earlier? Yes. But this also brings up Legacy, which is Heart Gold, Soul Silver on. You have many different cool card pairings that were came out and that just work well together, even with cards now. And then I also mentioned something to Andrew about Hall of Fame format. Hall of Fame format in Japan was a Japan-only format that was Diamond and Pearl on. another caveat to
Sounds
it.
fun.
They didn't have ban lists per se. They had a card value restrictions. So you could only have like a certain number of points in a deck. So let's say like Forest Giant Plants was at a 4, and you could only have like a certain number of like that specific number, right? So it just made for deck building creativity and allowed for more powerful cards to be take out more of your points in your deck.
Kind of sounds like Yu-Gi-Oh! When they're like, okay, we're gonna unban this card, but you can only have one
Yeah.
or two in the deck.
Yeah. Essentially.
Definitely got to plan your deck out then.
It definitely allowed for more planning. So, and you were talking about like specific formats, right? Like black and white, going back. So there are no official formats like that. There are tabletop formats though. There are people that like groups of people that love to play like specific like Neo Genesis era cards in decks and stuff like that. You just gotta find them.
Yeah, I would love them to have era formats, which would be like, this is XY only, this is black and white only, etc. Just so like someone who hasn't played, like myself, and probably kids getting into the game now, or even adults getting into the game now, can try those cards out and go, oh, okay, this is how it goes. This is probably what I would have played then.
Right. Very, very interesting, helping people get into it.
Yeah. Oh.
So, I think that's all like the cards that I kind of really wanted to talk about today. There may be like one or two that we just don't really need to talk about, but I think that's a good like episode on talking about expanded from standard to expanded, talking a little bit about like the importance of like the standard format rulings changes from how you can't attack on your first turn change all the way to now, which is you can't play your supporter on your first turn going first.
Yeah.
So.
Which definitely changed a lot because you'd play something like Lily, which if you go first, you draw up to 8 versus regularly drawing 6. There were other cards that you could play on your first turn that definitely helped, but the ruling changed for, I feel it was for the better. There's cards that people play on their first turn, and it was like, oh, you automatically lost because of what they played.
Right. But yes, there is that is why it was created. Because Japan has always done it for a while, but we were finally adapting to Japan's rules.
So. Yeah, I like that Pokemon's trying to be, we're the same worldwide, so if you go to a Worlds event, regional event, or wherever, that the rules aren't confusing as much.
Right. And Japan is the only place that has different rules originally than what we did. Okay. So, I think that's a good stopping point for today on all the cards that we've talked about, deck choices, and I think I hope that I was able to inform you a little bit more about expanded and standard and the time that you weren't playing. I hope that I was able to teach you a lot, Andrew.
Yeah, there's still a lot of cards. I occasionally will look it up. I'm like, hey, I want to play this card, and I'm looking for a standard one, and I see one that's expanded, and I read it, and I'm go, why was I not playing this?
Right. So, what are we looking at for next week?
Shinies. We all love them, but sadly there are some that are just terrible.
Yeah.
If you know, you know.
We'll go into really good depth on a list of shinies that could be better. And also, we might talk about how we can improve them. Again, this has been the Team Galactic podcast, bringing not a better world for you, but also your Pokemon. I've been Justin.
I've been Andrew.
And we'll see you later.
Goodbye.